Today we're really getting into the formative years of, well, a truly legendary figure, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj.
That's right. We know you, our listeners, want to get knowledgeable quickly, but also thoroughly.
Exactly. So think of this as your shortcut, your deep dive into understanding those crucial early influences that really shaped Shivaji, what made him who he became.
And we're basing this on a biography you shared, which is quite detailed about his upbringing.
So our mission, if you like, is to pull out the most significant educational threads, maybe find some surprising angles, and definitely identify the key takeaways.
You gave us the biography, and now we're going to unpack what it really tells us about how Shivaji was well made.
Okay, let's jump right in. The biography really puts a spotlight on his mother, Jijabai, especially those first 10 years or so.
Yeah, it calls that time the most tender and plastic age, meaning, a time when influences really stick.
Makes sense. And what was the background noise during that time? The political situation?
Well, it was pretty turbulent, actually. Jijabai was living through a lot of upheaval. Her husband, Shahaji, was often away, involved in conflicts, sometimes even in flight.
Right.
And the Nizam Shahi Sultanate, one of the big powers then, was constantly shifting alliances. This was all happening while she was pregnant and during Shivaji's very early childhood.
Stressful, to say the least.
Definitely. And the biography suggests this whole atmosphere created a strong, let's call it an anti-Muhammadan passion in young Shivaji. It even tries to link Jijabai's psychical excitement during pregnancy to his early feelings.
Interesting. So this constant feeling of instability, maybe betrayal, fostered this aversion early on.
That seems to be the argument, and Jijabai's own family history fed right into that. She was from the Jodha family of Devgiri.
A noble lineage, right? Once quite powerful.
Exactly. But the biography points out that by then they'd seen decline. They were serving Mohammedan rulers in lands they once, basically ruled.
Ah, the irony.
And Jijabai herself is described as having a haughty and indomitable spirit. She wouldn't have let Shivaji forget that past glory. Plus, the awful murder of her father and brother by the Nizam Shahi Sultan, that must have deepened her resentment considerably.
So personal tragedy mixed with historical grievance.
Yes. And add to that the story of the Sisodia Bansal family's downfall, also linked to Mohammedan rulers. And then there's Shahaji himself.
Her husband. He had his own moments, didn't he? Coming close to restoring some Hindu power.
He did. And the biography suggests that even though he didn't ultimately succeed back then, the fact he came close showed Jijabai it wasn't impossible. It wasn't just a pipe dream.
Ah, so it fueled her hope and perhaps her conversations with Shivaji.
Precisely. The biography says she constantly talked to him about the past greatness of the Jodhas and Bansals.
Contrasting it with the present situation.
Right, what it called the inglorious present of serving this alien Mohammedan power. She'd apparently highlight things like destroyed temples, slaughtered cows, mistreatment of Brahmins, real recurring themes.
So it wasn't just history, it was a narrative of loss and oppression.
Exactly. She was actively shaping his view of the world. And she used stories, too. The Puranas, other sacred texts.
Focusing on good versus evil.
Yes, that classic theme. And Shivaji, the text says, listened with rapt attention. This apparently built up his piety, his religious feeling.
It's like those epic stories, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, weren't just tales, but almost like instructions. Go and do likewise.
That's the implication. And it seems to have landed. All this early input, these constant stories and reminders, ignited what the book calls an unquenchable thirst for liberty.
It's fascinating. Because later, Dadaji Kondadev apparently tried to talk him out of his rebellious ideas.
Right. The biography mentions Dadaji's attempts.
But there's no mention of Jijabai doing that, ever.
And that silence speaks volumes, doesn't it? It really supports the idea that she was the primary engine behind his drive for independence, for challenging Islamic rule.
Now, there is that one instance later in Bijapur. She persuaded him to tone down the anti-Muhammadan talk for a bit.
Yes, which might seem like a contradiction at first glance.
But the explanation offered is
her duty as a Hindu wife. Basically, obeying her husband's wishes in that specific context, even if it went against her own grain.
Okay, so for that critical first decade, Jijabai's influence was just immense.
Yeah.
Shaping his core values, his ambitions.
Absolutely foundational.
Yeah.
Then the picture shifts a bit. Around 1637, Dadaji Kondadev comes onto the scene.
Right. He was appointed to manage Shahaji's Jagir.
Which was like a land grant giving administrative control.
Got it. And also to oversee Shivaji's education.
Correct. The biography notes Jijabai's direct day-to-day influence might have lessened then, but she was still there, watching over him, her hopes still high.
And Dadaji, what was he like as an administrator?
Apparently very effective. The lands Shahaji held, Pune, Supa, places like that, had suffered from wars, famine. Dadaji worked hard to bring them back.
Oh.
Things like encouraging people to return and farm by offering tax breaks, at least initially. He introduced Malik Ambar's revenue system,
Which was
based on assessed crop yields, seen as fairer. And he apparently gave farmers permanent land rights.
That sounds quite forward-thinking.
It does, and he seems to have been very hands-on, especially with the local Mawali people, encouraging cultivation, hiring them for local defense, protecting them from wild animals, bandits, really looking after the community.
A real commitment there.
Yeah.
And what about that story with the mango?
Ah, yes, the mango anecdote. He supposedly picked one from Shahaji's orchard without thinking, then felt so bad he considered chopping off his hand as punishment. A bit extreme, maybe, but...
But it highlights his integrity, his sense of duty.
Exactly, extreme uprightness and loyalty to Shahaji, that's the point it's making. And beyond administration, Dadaji provided Shivaji with military training and intellectual education.
Building on Jijabai's foundation.
Right. Shivaji learned Urdu, Persian, started Sanskrit. Dadaji was also religious, which likely reinforced Shivaji's piety.
And Dadaji was good with finances, administration.
Apparently, yes. Kept the people reasonably happy while also getting good revenue. Known as a fair judge, genuinely interested in people's welfare.
And Shivaji was paying close attention.
Very close. The biography emphasizes this. Even as a youngster, he wanted to know everything that was going on, learning the ropes by watching Dadaji.
That practical experience must have been invaluable.
No doubt. But, and this is crucial, there was a fundamental disagreement between them.
About the Mohammedan rulers.
Yes. That deep-seated drive for Hindu sovereignty instilled by Jijabai, Dadaji just didn't share it, or couldn't see it as realistic.
His perspective was more cautious.
Much more cautious. His focus was on submission, protecting the existing Jagiir, keeping things stable. Shivaji's grand plans seemed, well, reckless to him.
Understandable, maybe, given the power dynamics of the time.
Dadaji saw the strength of the sultanates, Bijapur, Golconda, the Mughals. He thought Shivaji was risking everything, including Shahaji's own position and safety.
So he tried to talk him out of it.
Earnestly, according to the biography, warned him it was dangerous, likely to end in disaster, emphasized the power of the sultans, pointed out the risk to Shahaji, who was, within the sultan's reach.
It's that classic tension, the pragmatist versus the visionary.
You could say that. The biography even suggests Dadaji's health declined partly due to worry over Shivaji's unwavering ambition.
But in the end,
Ah,
on his deathbed,
a really poignant moment described. He hands over the keys to the treasury, gives detailed instructions about managing everything, forts, districts, the army.
and then
Then, despite all his earlier warnings, he apparently gives Shivaji his blessing. Blesses his noble vow to inaugurate a new state for protecting cows, Brahmins, the glory of the faith, a powerful turnaround.
wow, quite a moment. So after Dadaji, there's a third influence mentioned, Shahaji himself.
Yes, Shivaji spent some time in Bijapur with his father. It wasn't as long a period of direct tutelage, perhaps, but the biography stresses its value.
How so? What did he gain there?
It was mostly observational learning, but on a huge scale. He got to see the Bijapur government machinery up close. Administration, court life, how nobles behaved, the whole system.
And Shahaji's position helped.
Immensely. Shahaji had influence, good relations with many nobles, both Muslim and Maratha. So Shivaji wasn't just an outsider looking in, he could really observe.
What kind of things did he focus on?
Military stuff, apparently. Checking out cantonments, war horses, artillery, asking questions of experienced officers, soaking it all up.
And Shahaji encouraged this.
Seems so. Had him present during discussions on war, diplomacy, at the Durbar court gatherings. It was like an apprenticeship in statecraft.
So what were the main takeaways from that Bijapur stint?
Two key things, according to the biography. One, he gained a ton of valuable practical information about how a state and army functioned.
And two,
His disgust of Mohammedan rule only got stronger. Seeing it from the inside perhaps solidified his resolve.
right. So if we look at his education overall, what's the big picture?
The biography really frames it as primarily moral and administrative, less about, say, deep literary study.
Although doesn't it mention praise from contemporary poets? suggesting some familiarity with texts.
It does acknowledge that. There's some inference he knew books, perhaps the epics and Puranas Jijabai taught him, but maybe not extensive formal scholarship in the way we might think of it. There are some later chronicles, like the Shiv Digvijaya, that exaggerate his learning, but the more authentic sources don't detail systematic study.
So the emphasis is really elsewhere.
Yes. The biography concludes, quite strongly actually, that Shivaji's life is a testament to the power of practical wisdom over purely bookish knowledge. His education came from life, from people, from observation.
From Jijabai's values, Dadaji's practical skills, and Shahaji's court exposure.
Precisely. Those three mainstreams.
Okay, so summing up this deep dive, we got Jijabai laying that absolutely crucial foundation, the passion for freedom, the resistance narrative. It's hard to overstate her role.
Definitely the emotional and ideological core. Then comes Dadaji Kondadev, bringing the practical side, administration, military basics, how to manage land and people effectively.
Essential skills. And finally, that period with Shahaji in Bijapur, providing invaluable observational learning about the very powers he would challenge, seeing how the system worked from the inside.
Right. Each influence brought something different, something vital. It's the combination, perhaps even the tension between someone like Dadaji's caution and Jijabai's fire that shaped him.
It really equipped him in a unique way for what lay ahead.
Absolutely. It wasn't a standard curriculum, but it was exactly what he needed.
So a final thought for our listeners to ponder. Considering all these formative influences, Jijabai's fire, Dadaji's pragmatism, Shahaji's worldliness, what do you think was the single most critical element? What truly enabled Shivaji to defy the odds and challenge the mighty empires of his time? Was it one specific influence or just the unique blend itself?
That's a great question. Maybe there isn't one single answer.
Perhaps not. Something to definitely think about. We encourage everyone to keep exploring the incredible story of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj.
I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.